nomination process right now. Andrew Yang going up very high, up in the polls.
Andrew Yang, he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah,
I met him, and we've talked, and I'm very happy to see, frankly, an Asian American of his talent doing as well. And I think that the entire Asian American community should be very proud of the campaign he's running.
Yeah, I'm personally enormously proud of him, and I'm very impressed with his performance and his ability to communicate, and it really boosts the image of the Asian male, particularly Chinese male. Yes. So I'm very impressed. But a lot of the accusations from some people to say is that, well, his UBI idea, giving out $1,000 to everybody, is very socialist. What do you think of that?
Well, Andrew Yang is not a socialist. He was an entrepreneur, and he worked for President Obama, and so I don't think he is in any way believes in socialism. He believes in a strong safety net. Now, I do not, personally, I'm not for a UBI because I still believe in the dignity of work. So I think that if people have the ability to work, we need to try to create good, meaningful jobs. I mean, think about it. I grew up in Pennsylvania. You can't just say, okay, Mark Zuckerberg will go make all the money and mail everyone in Pennsylvania and other states a check. People don't want that. They don't want a handout. They want pride. They want to create value. So I would be for, if someone is disabled, if someone has illness, if someone has an issue where they can't work, then I am for giving them a basic amount of money to live, and that is through the Social Security disability insurance, and I would expand that. But I don't think that every American who can work needs to be just given a UBI. That said, I do believe Andrew Yang is talking about very important issues of technology and has made a great contribution to American politics.
But Andrew Yang respond for this, said, if people have 1,000 basic income, so they will create more jobs, more works. He respond like this.
Well, I mean, I think that what people need is healthcare. What they need is education. What they need is infrastructure. And if they have those investments, then they will create jobs. Instead of giving people just cash of $13,000, I rather give them a college education or an education in digital marketing or software. Give them a skill that will allow them to earn a living or have a good career.
You know, the automation and the rise of AI at unprecedented pace certainly will, dislocate a lot of people. I mean, will remove them from regular jobs, lower-end jobs, or even high-end jobs. So I think the prospect of our next generation can seem pretty dim, right?
Well, I think we're going to create a lot of new jobs and job opportunities. I think technology will end up creating more opportunity. I mean, let's look at the current unemployment rate. I mean, there are a lot of things this president has messed up, but the unemployment rate is 3.8%. So we can't be talking about a jobless future when we're looking at 3.8% unemployment. The bigger problem is, how do you get good paying jobs? There are a lot of things that artificial intelligence will never be able to automate. Will it ever be able to automate empathy? Will it ever be able to automate persuasion? Will it ever be able to automate charisma? Will it ever be able to automate leadership? Will it ever be able to automate management? So many of the jobs that are human jobs are not about just detecting patterns. Right. So I think what we have to do is prepare people with a technological proficiency and say, now you can live anywhere in the country and you can work anywhere in the world and you don't even have to leave. Right. You're going to have more choice, more opportunity, more possibility today than you ever had before. Because if we want to sell the future, if we want to defeat Donald Trump's vision of nostalgia, where he's saying go back to the past, we have to convince people that the future is not something to be feared, that the future is actually going to mean more choice and opportunity for their families.
Right. Speaking of leadership, and I'm very impressed with the Indian Americans' success in the corporate world, even including those people who grew up and were educated in India and came to this country. They were able to rise to the absolute top of the American corporate ladder. And among the top three companies in the world. I mean, certainly if you look at, there's a lot of talented Chinese American immigrants who grew up in China, who were educated there. They are certainly extremely intelligent. And we're not seeing hardly any leaders rise up to the very top in American-run or American-owned companies or international companies. What do you think is the reason, and how do we help the Chinese Americans and the immigrants and these engineers to become better leaders and do better in America?
Well, first of all, I think Chinese Americans have also done very well, and there has been discrimination against Indian Americans in the corporate suites for many, many years. It's just recently that you've seen breakthroughs with Sundar Pichai at Google and Satya Nadella at Microsoft. But I would say even a decade ago or 2 decades ago, Indian Americans couldn't be CEOs, and they would say they have funny names, or that they don't have the right appearance, or that they don't have the right accent. So we have seen society, I think, become more open. But I do think that there is unfortunately still discrimination against Chinese Americans. I think Chinese Americans may face more stereotypes than Indian Americans, partly because of the rhetoric against China. There isn't, India is seen more as an ally of the United States, and Trump and some of the politicians have had such a rhetoric of Cold War against China that I think that leads to more prejudice in certain places against Chinese Americans. So we have to combat that as and recognize that discrimination. Second, I would just say that one thing that is interesting about the Indian American culture is it's quite entrepreneurial and quite risk-taking. And I do think that is something that can help get people in positions of leadership. You have to be willing to fail.
Yeah.
And I do think that sense of risk, especially of that immigrant generation, is there.